Now, moving from the UK to Australia, there was no doubt a list of things that I definitely expected to love about life in Australia. Obviously, that's why I moved here. But after living in Australia, there is definitely a long list of things that I never even expected to love about living in Australia. Things that 2.5 years later are literally some of my favourite things about living here. And we're going to go into that in today's video. Before we get into it, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to go through a list of different categories, starting with places. Which places did I not expect to love in Australia? Number one is Adelaide. Adelaide was a city that I never even expected to go to, let alone love. When I booked my flights to Sydney, I'd only just about heard of Adelaide. I never even considered going there, but honestly, after living there and traveling there, it's one of my favorite cities in Australia. We did actually end up leaving Adelaide because we had a bit of a negative experience during our second time there, but as a city, it's one of the nicest cities in Australia, some of the best beaches and some of the best scenery for sure. Adelaide is definitely underrated. I never expected to like it there. I didn't even expect to go there, to be honest. It was never on my list. Another city in Australia which I never even considered going when I first moved, but ended up being my favorite city. You guys may know it's Perth. Perth is where I am right now. It's the only city in Australia that, coming back for a third year, we really wanted to go back to, and I never expected to go to Perth. I think considering how far it is from the rest of Australia, it was just never on my list. But I moved here for the first time 2 years ago, and literally from the minute we got here, it's been my favorite city. It's just, there's so much to do. The weather's amazing, the scenery's amazing, and it's definitely the place in Australia that I felt the most at home. It's very funny that when I first moved to Australia, I never even considered going, let alone it being my favorite city in Australia. And the third place that I didn't expect to like at all was Darwin. Again, another place which wasn't even on my list. But I'd heard a couple of people traveling that had been to Darwin, so we thought we'd give it a go. And it was one of our favorite places we've traveled in Australia. I don't know if I'd live there, but traveling there, it was amazing. Anyone that hasn't been to Darwin, definitely go, because it's a very unique experience, and again, one place in Australia that I never expected to love. Next, let's talk about food. So which food places in Australia and types of food did I not expect to love? Number one is sushi. Sushi is massive in Australia, and after moving here, it is one of my favorite things to eat. It's so easy to get, but it is just unbelievable. Very popular in Australia and also a bit cheaper than in the UK. I feel like a lot of people discover this when they come to Australia, but it is amazing and one of my favorite things. A couple of fast food places that are unbelievable is Grilled and Oporto. There are a couple of fast food places here in Australia. Grilled is like a burger place, but the burgers there are amazing. And Oporto is like chicken. It's kind of like a Nando's sort of vibe. I started eating it in Sydney and was literally addicted. I went so many times when I first got to Sydney because it is so good. And also chicken salt. What an unbelievable discovery that is in Australia. And the last food place is a place called Yo Chi. It's basically where you go and you make your own like ice cream bowl, and you basically pay by the weight. So you can literally top it up as much as you can. Honestly, food places in Australia, I feel like are very, very good. I think Australia's food is just on point, to be honest. A lot easier to be healthy as well compared to the UK. So let's talk about activities. Which activities did I never expect to love in Australia? Number one is snorkeling. Being on the East Coast a lot and traveling to places like Cairns, even living in Cairns, places like the Great Barrier Reef are literally on your doorstep. One thing that I love now is snorkeling. Any chance I get to snorkel, it's amazing. It's like everyone's got to either try snorkeling or scuba diving in Australia because it's one of the best places in the world you can do it, and it's just become one of my favorite activities living here. The next one is hiking and running. Now this is one that I never expected to love, because if you asked me to go for a run in the UK, I would have been like, no chance. Same with a hike, to be honest. It didn't really interest me. I think mostly because the scenery isn't that amazing in the UK, and also when the weather is terrible, it takes some serious motivation to get out for a hike or a run. But in Australia, the scenery is incredible and the weather is amazing, so it literally feels rude not to go out on a hike or a run. And for the first time in my life, I've actually kind of enjoyed running a bit, mostly down to the scenery that there is in Australia. It just makes it so much better. And I never expected Australia to be as good as it is for hiking, but certain places that we've lived, in particular Cairns, Adelaide and Perth, literally have some amazing hikes. Adelaide in particular because it's very close to the hills. I literally love hiking now I live in Australia. I never expected that. So people and culture, which things did I not expect to love in Australia? Firstly, the laid back culture in Australia, and in particular, the kind of laid back vibes towards work. I've already said that working in Australia, I don't know why, but it just feels so much more chilled out than in the UK. There's more of a positive vibe. I feel like in the UK, no one wants to be there and they bring that negativity to work and it just creates a bad atmosphere. In Australia, I feel like people live way better lives outside of work and people are just happier because of it. And in general, I would say I found that people take their jobs a bit less serious here, which definitely makes it better. Especially when you're a backpacker, you're not trying to work in a place that's like chaotic and everyone's taking it so seriously. So I quite like the laid back work vibes in Australia, and also the friendliness of people here. I never expected to love this because I never expected people here to be that friendly, to be honest, but people are just way more welcoming. People say hi. Traveling up the East Coast and going to like smaller towns where you'd meet Australian people, the amount of people that we met that were so helpful, so friendly in the smaller towns was amazing. And whilst you do still get nice, friendly people in the UK, I'd say it's more the case in Australia, and I didn't expect to like how friendly Australian people are as much as I did, because I didn't even think that they'd be that friendly. But Aussies are very chilled out. They're not overly friendly where it's too much, but they're just like subtly friendly, and it's very nice. So working in Australia, which things did I not expect to love? Well, obviously I mentioned the chilled out vibes, but also the wages here in Australia. Knowing that if I did the same job in the UK that I'm doing right now, I would be getting paid way less is very satisfying. And I didn't even know the wages were this much higher in Australia, but moving here, I love how high the wages, and as well as this, the weekly pay. I didn't know Australia paid weekly until I moved here, but I love getting paid weekly. In the UK, most of the time it's monthly. In Australia, nearly every job I've worked, I've been getting paid weekly, which is so nice. Didn't expect that because I didn't even know it was a thing. And then traveling, which places did I not expect to love traveling to in Australia? Now, obviously I expected to love traveling the East Coast. I expected to love traveling to most of the cities, but there was a few places which I never expected to love. First place was the Outback. I knew I'd like seeing Uluru and stuff and Alice Springs, but I feel like that whole trip we did to the Outback was one of my favourite memories from Australia. I don't know why, I think because it's such a unique experience. You're going somewhere where not many backpackers go, and even though it wasn't really on my list moving to Australia and travelling there, it's one of my favourite travel experiences I've had here in Australia, there's no doubt about that. And if I had to pick a state that I travelled to which I didn't expect to love travelling to, I would say the Northern Territory. So in the Northern Territory, we did Alice Springs, Uluru, obviously, stayed around there for around a week. Then we travelled up past a few towns all the way up to Darwin. And I've already mentioned Darwin. I loved it there. But it's one state that, again, I didn't even think I would travel to, let alone love. So it's one experience in Australia that I never really expected to have. I expected to travel the East Coast and stuff, hence why it's not unexpected, but the Northern Territory was one state which was very, very cool to travel that I never even expected to go to. So there is a list of things in Australia that I never expected to love. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I'll see you very soon with another video.